Hello, everyone. This is the Mystic Mondays Tarot. It's a relatively minimalist illustrated deck with a lot of pluses going for it and a few minuses. Before I launch into this deck, I want to make clear my perspective on tarot in general. I read from a perspective of generalized cartomancy. My objective is to create actionable and useful truth out of a situation, and I am a very traditional reader in the sense that I don't really care if the deck exactly reflects Golden Dawn or Kabbalistic principles. The only thing that matters to me is whether or not it's a good vehicle for creating insight. Mystic Mondays definitely fits that regard, although if you go strictly by the meanings in the guidebook, it does tend to skew positive. What I mean by that is from the assertion on the first page. It says, this colorful deck is full of positive vibes that allow you to access answers for your highest good. And also from something, this Two of Cups, talking about two becoming one, partnership, pretty openly like good vibes type things, versus the Rider-Waite-Smith Two of Cups that you can take to mean more abstractly companionship. Definitely Two's Company, definitely still a happy leaning card, but it can mean like a pair versus this one, which almost strictly means a good friend at a minimum. The imagery on here, in contrast to the very direct explanations in the guidebook for both the upright and the reversed cards, is somewhat minimal. And I, in certain circumstances, appreciate that. It allows your intuition to kind of bend and warp around the cards. I apologize that this deck is not in order, but I think I will give you enough of an idea in order to draw your own conclusions about whether the art resonates with you. And this, like, some of this is amazing, like the Peacock and the Nine of Pentacles. That's very apt symbology. Some of this, if you didn't know that Judgment was somewhat about assessing and moving from one state into the next world, that might not be evident symbolism from here. It does help that this pulls back the very Christian-heavy imagery of the Rider-Waite-Smith, where people see Judgment and the imagery of the rapture and go, oh my goodness, we're judging people. Not necessarily. There's a leaning on closure and on moving into the next phase. I got this one just because the particular cast of colors, this sort of sunset vibe that's in a lot of the cards, and the overall aura and minimalism was something that I thought I might want to get in my Chaos deck, and I probably still will. But I don't know that if I weren't building a deck out of this, and I weren't in the habit of magpieing decks together, that I would have necessarily gone for this one by itself. Just on the basis that it tends to be less balanced in terms of reading. Now, if you're a person who finds yourself more sensitive to negative readings, this is not necessarily, I would of course encourage you to develop greater balance. I tend to have the opposite problem, which is I tend to lean a little bit more negative, and so if decks are too happy, it's hard for us to see eye to eye, so to speak. But here's some of the things that I do love about this. One note on these two, we have, instead of the Hanged Man, we have the Hanged Woman, and we have a Princess of Swords instead of a page. That's nice. The original Rider-Waite-Smith is about 9 or 10 men too heavy in terms of representing everyone 50-50. And that doesn't necessarily... I try not to get into a quagmire of social commentary every time I bring that up. But I feel it's important that a deck represents the reality of the population you're trying to read for. And the Rider-Waite-Smith is not strictly accurate in that regard. Some of this, this is a great Five of Wands. Minimal imagery, right? But very much, change in the element of fire. A idea of energies just crossing each other, and the tumult of all that is very neatly captured. And for those of you who haven't seen my other reviews, this is my take on almost every deck. There are some of these that pop very well from my particular perspective and might not for you, or might for you. That's going to depend on where everyone is reading from, of course. This is a used copy, so the gilding is not as it originally comes on the edges. Cardstock on these is great. I mean, that's a deck of 78, and you can kind of tell by how thick it is. Even my favorite Bones Arcana is about this much thinner because the cards just aren't as hefty. The guidebook is hefty too. Definitely a very friendly deck. For some people, that's exactly what they're looking for. For me, I'm going to pack this together with other decks in order to even out the perspective. I hope this helped you in case you're looking to get a hold of this one. And balance and power.